what's been happening with this, great resignation is like there's a leveling, there's a balance that we haven't really seen before. The scales and the power is being, turned. Tables are being turned, and people are having a better sense of how they want to show up and if they want to show up. So in some ways, if you think about it from a nature perspective, if they get fired because they stand up for what they believe in, it's actually a good thing. Because or if they self-select and say, like, I don't want to be a part of this because it's not aligned with who I am or my purpose or values, I'm actually going to leave. So I think with COVID, the silver lining is like everyone is level setting on like what they actually really want to be and how they want to show up in life, not just the workplace. So I guess what I'm saying in the getting fired bit, I don't think it's a bad thing, because I mean, ideally you choose it. Like ideally you say, I'm going to leave because it's not the right place for me. But getting fired for things that you are not aligned or, disaligned with who you are, that to me is a good thing.
Well, it's yes and no. Obviously you're right. If you're not happy in your job and something comes that pushes you to the realization, or your company, that you're not right for the job, that's a good thing. But we're not, I've talked to business leaders who are absolutely terrified of the 20 somethings in their office.
Right.
And it's not that they're misaligned. They're just worried about saying the wrong thing or hurting feelings. So I'm sort of curious what happens when you talk to the companies that you deal with. If this comes up, if the older, younger generation is having real issues about quote unquote authenticity.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting because what's actually happening right now, there's a differentiation between Gen Zers and millennials and so on down the line, right? Like in terms of like where we are, baby boomers or Gen Xers and all that. And we can look at it that way. But the data goes back to this, which is super interesting to me, is that Gen Zers are actually more productive. Like they have a better sense of, I need to get, I don't know if I can cuss on this, but I need to get my shit done to live a good life. And what that means is like they're more industrial in some ways than millennials. So I think it's important to realize that just because they're young, it doesn't mean that they don't want to do the work. The interesting stat of that is just like that the Gen Zers actually do a lot of work. But the thing is that they wear a lot of hats. They have a full spectrum of what they want to be. And so that's why, for example, like I want to work at this company. I want to be a designer. I also want to be an artist. I also, want to make sure my bills are paid, those kind of things. And what I'm seeing in that is that that's why the authenticity piece is so important, is because we cannot assume as leaders what people need, but we can open up the conversation and have that dialogue with what is it that you're wanting? What is it that you are holistically wanting? Not just your skill set, not just your role and responsibilities, but where are you mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally, and of course, spiritually with purpose. Those kind of conversations are what breaks down the barriers of any sort of Gen X, Gen Y, whatever it is. Because in the end, we are all human beings that have went through a lot, especially in the last 18 plus months. So once we break down those barriers, then real conversation can be had. And I do believe in self-selection of whether or not it's a good fit, because at this time, the pendulum is swung. And whether we're an employee or employer, it's more equal ground.